Well, welcome to the third installment of my commentary videos on the French Revolution. And this one, my original intention was to relate to you the brutal murder of the Marquis de Launay, who was he was the governor of the Bastille on the 14th of July, 1789. And this was a man he's described as being nervous and indecisive. However, when a delegation of citizens entered the Bastille and met with him to demand that he remove all the cannon from the walls of the Bastille in order to, I guess you could say, placate the crowd, and assure him that he meant no harm. In fact, he was actually so accommodating that I'm going to read to you just a little bit from the book. So eager, in fact, was the governor to display his good intentions that Thuriot, he was a member of the second delegation that followed the first one. So eager, in fact, was the governor to display his good intentions that Thuriot believed that he would have agreed to accept a citizens' militia had not the officers declared that they would all be dishonored if they gave in so meekly. So, however, despite the governor's attempt to placate the crowd, in the end, he was massacred by the Paris mob, and his head was severed from his body and placed on a pikestaff and paraded throughout the streets of Paris, much to the applause of the general populace. Another incident I actually wanted to relate to you was a very, very brutal murder of a citizen. His name was Foulon de Douai. Forgive my pronunciation. My French is totally out of practice, and my pronunciation is terrible. But anyway, this man was accused of having said that the people should be made to eat hay if they were hungry, and what they did was a collar of nettles was placed around his neck, a bunch of thistles was thrust into his hand, and a fistful of hay was stuffed between his lips. He was then hanged on a nearby lamppost. His son-in-law, Berthier de Sauvigny, the intendant of Paris and the Ile de France, was accused of similar abuses and murdered as well. His heart was torn out of his body and brandished at the windows of the Hôtel de Ville. Then his head was cut off and paraded with that of his father-in-law on a pikestaff through the streets and down the arcades of the Palais Royal, the one head being pushed against the other to cries of "Kiss, Papa, kiss, Papa." Here Governor Morris saw the populace carrying about the mangled fragments with a savage joy. Gracious God, Morris thought, what a people! There were strong protests against these murders, but they had their apologists too. Is this blood then so pure, asked Bernabe defiantly in the National Assembly, that one should so regret to spill it? Others cried that more heads would have to roll before justice for the people could be secured. Now, in these passages itself, it just goes to show that the very next stage of the revolution, once the prisons are stormed and the heads are paraded about on poles, the next stage of every revolution is the monopolization of revolutionary violence by the revolutionary state itself. Essentially, it's legitimate death through legalized violence. I quoted Robespierre earlier on in saying that the government in a revolution is the despotism of liberty against tyranny, and his example, Robespierre's example, has since been followed by countless other tyrants of liberty, and these tyrants, these despots, are only distinguished from their predecessors only by their cruelty and the ideological principles that they use to justify that very same tyranny. And overall, I'd have to say I hope that my commentary has given you an idea of what the French Revolution was really like. In essence, it was an eruption of all the basest instincts in the lowest elements of society. These were led by power drunk ideologues of the radical left, which planted the seeds of both the socialist and communist movements of the 20th century, and also the Nazi and fascist movements as well. It was nothing like the American Revolution, which was led by responsible members of society, and for that, I guess we should be forever grateful, as should other countries which emulated the American model of political reform rather than that of the French one. The contrast between those who led the American Revolution and those who launched the French Revolution is like night and day. Our leaders were sound, they were sober, they were cautious and moderate. They grounded their grievances against the British king. Their grievances were grounded in English common law. They were grounded in the rights of local governments, and they were grounded in countless carefully reasoned judicial and legal precedents. The French, however, the French voted with the ideologues like Robespierre, with demagogues like Marat, and and they voted with the mob itself. It was mob rule essentially. It was irresponsible. They were frivolous and they were cowardly. Uh, and most of the leaders of the revolution, ended up meeting the same gruesome fate that they themselves had so relished in seeing dished out upon others. Like I said before, every radical revolution eats its own young. Uh, ironically, ironically, the best source for learning about what went right in America and what was wrong and what went wrong in France is the work of a French aristocrat. You might have heard of him, Alexis de Tocqueville. Now, he, a Frenchman, he understood better than any U.S. native. Uh, he understood the roots of our liberty, and the admiration he had for America is just outstanding. And in all my years of reading and studying the many works of the French Revolution, and reading about the horrors that this revolution spawned in the end, it's forever spoiled for me the thought of ever celebrating Bastille Day. Instead, I believe that we should make sure every year to remember the victims of the French Revolution. We should remember them. They need to be remembered, and not relegated to some footnote in history. Um, all in all, it all depends on you yourselves. It is your responsibility to read your history and remember the lessons of the past. And on that note, I'll see you next time.